being able to understand that a lot of these injuries, where you feel them is not where the actual source of the problem is. In the last 5 or 10 years, we've really gotten down on seed oils. There's a lot of information about how devastating seed oils are. Diet as an anti-aging strategy, diet is still the primary driver of a lot of what we do.
So what are you doing to fight the frailty and to to stay as vibrant as you are?
Yeah. I mean, it really, I think, it comes down to some simple rules. One is you got to eat right. You absolutely have to eat right. And of course, I've orchestrated most of my professional career around figuring out those secrets, hence 10 books on how to eat right. Then there's the movement patterns. And the movement, I thought when I was younger that the more was better, and putting in 100 miles a week of running or 250 miles a week of cycling was the way to go. And I was going to be jacked, and not jacked because you can't get that big doing that amount of endurance stuff. But I was going to be the fittest, beast on earth. Doesn't work that way. There's a point of diminishing returns when you train too hard and too much. So a lot of what I've done in the past couple of decades is figure out, literally, to quote Tim Ferriss, what's the minimum effective dose of exercise? What's the least amount of exercise, focused on the workout part? What's the least amount of working out I can do and maintain muscle mass and maintain some amount of power and agility and mobility, and then that allows me to play without getting injured. So all of the workouts I do in the gym are sort of contemplated to keep me from getting injured when I'm playing. Now, when I'm playing, I'm having fun. I'm moving around a lot. I'm sprinting. I'm jumping. I'm paddling. I'm doing core work. I mean, it's all kind of all over the place, which adds up to a total picture of, I think, vibrancy. I mean, I'm not just, going out and running 40 miles a week as a 68-year-old guy, and that's it. I'm doing a little bit of sprints, a little bit of endurance, a little bit of cycling, a little bit of, throwing and catching and changing movement. So the key to that is to move yourself through as many planes and ranges of motion as you possibly can, because as we get to the later stage of our lives, we really have to define the quality of life in ways that are meaningful. And I think the two major meaningful ways are access to cognition. So our thoughts, can we respond to people, have conversations? Can we recall our thoughts? Can we remember things? Do we have access to those wonderful memories that we created in the earlier parts of our lives? And mobility, am I able to get through this world and enjoy travel and enjoy meeting new people and enjoy going places and taking walks and going out in the forest or going on a hike or going in the water and swimming or going scuba diving or snorkeling or whatever it is, or skiing or snowboarding? Those are all, again, to me, those are all, the sorts of things that add up to a high quality of life. And when you as you get older, those people tend to I think downplay the importance of those. I'll sit home, I'll call my kids on the phone, or I'll talk to my grandchildren, or I'll watch TV or whatever, and there's this steady decline that people tend to enter into if they're not really aware of what's going on. And the more you sit around and the less you work out, the less inclined you are to work out, the less inclined you are to move, the less inclined you are to walk. So, walking is still the greatest thing humans ever learned to do. The bipedalism, which is, we're basically like segways. How do we stay upright on 2 feet? I don't even know, right? It's like,
it is amazing.
It is amazing. But the ability to just get out and walk is, I cannot stress enough to everybody. And what's funny is, I don't know if you're fans of Mark and Chris Bell, the Bell brothers, Mark Smelly Bell.
I'm familiar. I don't really know that much about them.
But I mean, he's been a bodybuilder. Well, he's been a heavy weightlifter his whole life, and then a bodybuilder. And now he's just sort of discovered walking, and it's like one of his favorite activities to do. And I love to see that. And he's still in the gym lifting heavy shit, but he's out there walking every day because he recognizes the importance of it. That's
amazing.
Yeah.
Why? Do you have like a certain step count that you aim for, or it's just like you just go by the feel of your body?
I go by the feel. So I was in July, I rented a house in the south of France, and a big house. I had my family and friends visit throughout the month, and we didn't have a car, and it was away from town or towns and villages and things like that. So I walked an average of 7 or 8 miles a day every day, and we all walked. We walked to dinner, back from dinner. We walked to go shopping. We walked to go to the beach. We just took hikes for the sole purpose of taking a hike. And I realized at the end of the month, I got like 240 miles of walking in.
Wow.
And I had a hamstring injury that I'd been working on the months prior. These are the sorts of injuries that when you get older, they just, they take a little bit longer to heal. When you're 18, you get a hamstring injury, it's better the next day. When you're 28, it takes a couple of days or a week. When you're 30, it takes, at my age, it can be devastating. So I had physical therapy. I had 10 sessions of physical therapy for like 2 hours each. Nothing worked. Next thing you know, I walked, and I walked in basically minimalist shoes the whole time for the month of July, and the issue resolved.
Wow.
And it's just so magical that you always go back to nature has the best way to fix things, whether it's COVID, whether it's global warming. I mean, whatever you look at, and heart disease, dementia, all the things that we talk about and know about, nature always has the best answer. It's not found in drugs. It's not found in some surgical intervention. It's not found in all of the magic potions and lotions and things that we figure we need. Literally, there's always a solution that will be found in nature that's probably the best solution.
I love that. When it comes to minimalist shoes, I've been reading about them for years. Are they really good to wear on when you're walking on concrete? Because I understand that being barefoot is like you spend a lot of time on the actual beach. Where walking barefoot I think is makes obviously the most sense, but like my experience with wearing really thin soled shoes, it kind of hurts like my lower back a little bit, or my knees when I'm walking on concrete.
Right. Well, I mean, there's the difference between a very thin sole and a slightly cushioned sole that still has zero drop and still doesn't have much of an arch, so you're still requiring the small muscles of your feet to do some work. Having said that, I mean, I walked mostly pavement in France.
Wow.
Because it was up and down streets and sidewalks and boardwalks and things like that. And again, the more I did it, to your point, you have to adapt to it. It's not something that you go out and buy minimalist shoes and then the first day you run 7 miles. You gotta break your feet in a little bit. You have to adapt them, acclimate them to the shoes. But once you get acclimated, then it becomes a great thing, and it becomes good for a back problem or good for a
yeah. Our mutual friend Aaron Alexander. Those are all like he wears. Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah,
and that guy's a beast. So. So you don't do any deliberate workouts at this point? Like,
for sure.
You're still going to the gym.
But I go to the gym, but now what used to be an hour and 20-minute workout is a 23-minute workout. I literally go to get the pump, if you will, and to do some, maybe some resistance, rubber band resistance exercises, things like that. If I do upper body, it's pull-ups. It might be dips. I do push-ups.
Like where in the rep range generally?
Usually 15 reps per set, 3-set kind of thing. Nothing that, while I've done a lot of research on lifting heavy weights, there's a point at which lifting heavy weights, again, becomes sort of dangerous at my age. So like I will do, once every 10 days, I'll do a hex bar deadlift, right? And I can do 335 pounds, which is double my body weight. But I don't like to, because that's a 1 rep max, and 1 rep maxes are sort of like binary. Either you can do it, in which case it's probably not your max, or you can't do it, in which case you might hurt yourself. So, whatever you think your 1 rep max, or I think my 1 rep max is, I might work up to 4 reps of something that's 88% of that or something.
Yeah.
But again, always sort of contemplated to avoid injury, not to court injury.
Yeah.
And there is a point, for me, it happened around the age of 52, where you realize you're never going to set another PR in anything. So why even risk that? And then it just becomes a game to figure out how to, optimize your workout. Again, the minimum effective dose of a workout to get you through the workout uninjured, leave you feeling not knackered, not beat up, but feeling, like you did a workout and that you're going to recover in a day or two.
Yeah. Are you at all familiar with this? I discovered this guy on Instagram recently. He's like a knees over toes
Yeah.
guy or something like
Yeah.
that. But it's basically like this philosophy, which he's sort of championing. But, I'm sure you're well familiar with this concept as well, that, the dogma in the fitness world when doing moves like squats and lunges to never let your knees go over your toes actually isn't rooted in science and could potentially be to the detriment of like knee stability and things like that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not that well versed in the biomechanics there, but like
Yeah.
somebody like Kelly Starrett, who is, he's gone through all these iterations of, where the knees should be and where the feet should be relative to the knees. And I think at the end of the day, it really comes down to your own biomechanics. Like if you can have somebody who can watch you and understands biomechanics, and then how your own body is set up, maybe you're pigeon-toed, maybe you're knock-kneed, maybe you're bow-legged, maybe you've got years of hip dysplasia. I mean, there are all these factors that you have to add into the equation in order to come up with what's right for you. And I think sometimes, one size fits all workout routine like that can be problematic.
Yeah, totally. There's a lot of like fitness porn on Instagram, people doing all kinds of crazy moves. But, biomechanically, like something as simple as a deadlift for me has always been a challenge.
Yeah.
I'm like a tall, lanky guy.
Yeah.
And I've just never been able to do them properly, I feel like. And
a true deadlift, or have you tried the hex bar deadlift?
I've never tried that.
So the hex bar deadlift is just a kinder, gentler way of doing a deadlift. Because the bar is around you, the weight is sort of through the middle of your body instead of over the front of it. So the tendency to strain your back trying to do heavy weights is decreased because of the centering of the weight over the middle of you.
Super interesting. And how does the weight like translate? Like, are you typically stronger?
Most people are a little bit stronger on a hex bar deadlift. Yeah. And the hex bar deadlift is kind of a combination of a loaded squat and a deadlift. If you can imagine, the weight behind your back on a squat, and keeping your back positioned appropriately. You're trying to keep the weight over the center of your body. Same thing with a hex bar deadlift, but except now you're deadlifting it instead of from here. Your arms are at your side, and part for me, that amount of weight puts. I think my weakest, the weakest part of my lift there is my grip strength.
Interesting.
Yeah.
With sort of, in air quotes, anti-aging being a primary focus of your efforts, are there any like particular muscle groups that you spend more time exercising, like hips, legs, lower body, things like that?
That's a good question. There are more that I should spend time exercising, but I probably don't. And yeah, hips, inner thigh, sort of paying more attention to hamstrings, to glutes, to the, for instance, I've had Achilles issues over the years. And the Achilles issue isn't in and of itself problematic. It's the tightness in the calf muscle, in the gastroc. So, being able to understand that a lot of these injuries, where you feel them is not where the actual source of the problem is. And you have to kind of deconstruct and figure out how to go back and approach those. And then I've had enough injuries over the years. I've had severely torn hamstrings on one severely torn on my right leg, not so much on my left. I tore my lat muscle when I was 35 years old, and,
wow.
It dropped. The thing tore off and dropped down and was a ball.
Jesus.
And I didn't, in both cases, I didn't have surgery. And it just allowed I should have, but anyway, I allowed my body to kind of return to its own like natural state, which how that manifested itself was an asymmetrical body now that was doing symmetrical work. So for instance, when I was doing pull downs or pull ups, if you look at my back, if you cut it down the middle, it looks like two different backs, two different people.
Wow.
Because the musculature is so different from one side to the next, because the side that had the injury sort of muscles found ways to do the work, new muscles that wouldn't ordinarily be used in that particular exercise. It's a little weird. And,
You ever hear that line, find what you love and let it kill you?
yeah, that's
That's you,
that's
pretty
me.
much.
That's me. No, I've had enough. I got a patellar tendon torn off playing frisbee one time. So I've had my share of those sorts of injuries. But knock wood, I come back and I
Yeah.
work around them. I figure out a workaround because I still want to play and I don't want to sit on the sidelines.
It reminds me of my my middle brother Andrew. He's basically a competitive jiu-jitsu fighter, and well, his intent is not to like go to the. I'm gonna sound like such an idiot here, but like the big leagues or whatever, like major competitions. But he's more than a hobbyist. Like he loves jiu-jitsu. But his intent is not to go pro.
Mm-hmm.
And yet he's always getting these injuries. Like his knees are always getting messed up. He's like tearing things, his meniscus, in both, I think he's teared at this point. He's developing like some kind of cyst on the back of the other knee, and his ear. Recently, he started to develop the cauliflower ear in on one side. And I'm like, why are you doing this to yourself?
Yeah.
But it's because he loves it.
Yeah. I had not heard that line, and I'm going to use it. Find something you love and let it kill you.
You've never heard that?
No.
It's the best.
Yeah.
Because that's really what I think it is. That's what, to me, the meaning of life is,
Mm-hmm.
like we're all on this moving walkway, like at the airports, towards this, this inevitable destination. And I think to have a meaningful life, which I think is, if you look at all of the world's long-lived populations, having a sense of purpose in their lives.
Absolutely.
It's crucially important.
And to digress a little bit, what I see with the generations coming up, and I'm kind of fearful of what's going to come out of COVID as a result of this, but this reason to get out of bed in the morning, like why do you get up in the morning? Why do you not just do what Brian Wilson did in the 60s and stay in bed for 2 years and never get out of bed? You have to have meaning. You have to have a reason to get up. And for a lot of people, it's a hobby. For your brother, it's that pursuit, even though it's killing him. It's not killing him. It's just it's letting him know that he's alive is what it is, right?
Yeah.
I think I used to have a T-shirt. My original T-shirt with Primal Nutrition and Primal Kitchen was "Live Long, Drop Dead," and I've sort of felt that way. That was the hunter-gatherer experience. Like if you survived the rigors of the hostile environment, you got stronger and stronger and stronger until something either a saber-toothed tiger whacked you, or you just at 88 or 90 years old, even 100,000 years ago, you just drop dead.
Yeah, you just want to make it through with as few scars and injuries as possible, but you're gonna accumulate some.
Right, but back to sort of what we said in the opening, which was what defines a quality of life, and one of those things, mobility, is that ability to snowboard and powder down a steep face. That is one of the greatest experiences in life, or surfing, or or skiing, or cycling, in the Alps. There are all of these experiences that so many people will never get because they're not fit enough to suit up and go try it out. And then those that do try it they're smitten.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the aging population in this country, and everybody's, everyone that you see is frail, barely mobile. It's a real problem. And
Yeah.
just because it's typical, just because the way that people typically age is common, doesn't make it normal. And so, this is, I think, an important conversation to be having.
Yeah. I mean, that even sort of bleeds over into, medical statistics, where they look at, the blood work of the average population or the normal population. Well, that's the average population. That's an average unhealthy population. So when you look at ranges of outcomes or ranges of blood work, they're not referencing ideal. They're referencing what the general population norm is, and it's generally an unhealthy population. It's just bizarre. So we look at cholesterol numbers, right? And people have cholesterol over the map, and some people have HDL that's in the 30s or 40s, which is horrible. But but because it fits a norm that there are a lot of people that have that low HDL, and as long as the total is under 200, then the doctor will say everything's fine. You're within a range.
Yeah, that's how they design those reference ranges,
Yeah,
right? It's just
yeah.
based on population averages.
Yeah.
And we know that the average average person in this country is not well, unfortunately. 12% of people have good metabolic health, which is just
No, it's ridiculous. One of the things that's come out of the COVID experience was vitamin D levels. And we see how important vitamin D is. Like literally, vitamin D might be the single most important factor in being able to handle a bout of COVID-19, or maybe not even becoming asymptomatic. And when you look at the reference ranges of even the studies, the reference ranges of the populations start with such low levels of vitamin D. Like you and I, having been in this field for a long time, would go, Jesus, those people with 25 or less, they're unhealthy out of the gates, and yet that was sort of the high end of one range. And then they said, well, if it was above 25, then you were into a healthier range. Well, no, I don't think you're healthy until you get into the 40 and above.
Between 40 and 60, nanograms per milliliter is typically what I aim for.
Yeah.
When I had COVID, that was definitely one of the supplements that I brought into the arsenal.
Yep.
It was vitamin C, it was quercetin, it was zinc, melatonin, vitamin C, and fish oil. I don't think enough people are talking about fish oil as a potential therapeutic option. I'm not aware really of any research on it, but to me, it makes a lot of sense that fish oil would be useful, in mitigating the cytokine storm and preventing blood clots and things like that. Because fish oil is a natural blood thinner.
Right, thinner. I didn't do fish oil, and I had COVID over Thanksgiving, and mine was a non-issue really. I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop. Kept thinking what's gonna happen, but it was like a mild summer cold. But I did lose taste and smell for 8 days, and that was freaky.
Wow.
And so I did a lot of zinc supplementation. I mean, I did 10, 20,000 IU of vitamin D every day, just as a matter of like, that was easy. That was an easy selection. But the zinc thing, I think, contributed to my coming back, because I have friends who got COVID and who like literally 6 months later didn't have full taste and smell.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's the weird thing. Most of the people that I know that have gotten COVID did lose their sense of taste and smell, and that never happened to me, which I feel kind of lucky about. I didn't lose my sense of smell or taste. Yeah.
It's almost universal what I've heard with people. So that's interesting.
Yeah. Maybe it's the genius foods.
Yeah.
Or something. No, my neurologist friend said that probably suggests that there was like, some lesser degree of penetration into the brain or something like that, because your senses originate in your in the cortex. So that was I didn't have fun with COVID. I'm just gonna say
I don't think anybody has fun with it. But
no, it was my heart goes out to people honestly that have suffered with it, because it is rough, and I'm a relatively healthy, fit guy, and for me it was it was like 8 days of just pure suckage.
Wow.
But yeah, glad that I'm on the other side of that. So going back to strategies to mitigate the aging process. Yeah. Nutritionally, what are you doing these days to support your efforts?
So I've become more and more carnivore. And it's interesting because I was the big ass salad guy, right? I mean, I promoted Mark's big ass salad for 10 or 15
You're
years.
not eating a big ass salad every day anymore?
No.
Wow.
And not so much because I think it's bad for you, because like guys like Paul Saladino will say, well, maybe we shouldn't even be eating plants.
Dude, that guy's like on a paleo diet at this point.
Yeah. He's eating berries. He's eating fruit. So, and honey, apparently a lot of honey. But no, I've cut back on nuts, for instance. That was a paleo sort of treat for a long time, and I'm more and more convinced that nuts don't serve me well. In the last 5 or 10 years, we've really gotten down on seed oils. There's a lot of information about how devastating seed oils are. I was talking about it years ago, but not as overtly as like a Kate Shanahan is doing right now, or some of the people out there who are really even Michael Eads, is saying, look, and he's one of my mentors. Yeah, these industrial seed oils may be more of an issue than sugars for a lot of people. So yeah, I cut out, the sugars. I think that's kind of goes without saying for a lot of people. Trying to cut out the seed oils is difficult though, because if you eat at a restaurant, you have to sort of remember that you got to ask them what they're cooking the protein in. If it's a soy concoction, because a lot of these restaurants, even the high-end restaurants, have these oil blends that they buy that are inexpensive that they can cook in.
Do you really go that far? Like in restaurants, you'll ask?
Well, typically, if they're going to be cooking like a fish or something like that, I'll ask, but I don't overfish that often. So if I'm ordering a steak, I don't even, it's like, just.
Well, because you just assume they're throwing it on the grill.
Just throwing it on the grill.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm eating, really watching out for the industrial seed oils. I mean, that's the reason I started Primal Kitchen in the first place was, I was over trying to figure out how to get a good salad dressing, or a mayonnaise or any kind of condiment. I'm the 2 meals a day, which is the name of my most recent book, really has become kind of a way of life for me. So I don't eat until 1 or 1:30. I don't feel compelled to. I'm not hungry. It just fits perfectly with my lifestyle. So I'll have a lunch, kind of a smallish lunch, and then a very enjoyable dinner. But again, not overdoing it, just enough to satisfy. I noticed that if I was on vacation, but I have to admit I'm always on vacation now. So, but I happen to be on vacation.
Don't rub it in, Mark.
In France, and I had desserts and I had bread and but not not overboard, right? Just enough to kind of taste, get that sensation in a couple of bites, and then say, okay, I got it. And I notice the difference, on occasion. I mean, there'll be a night when I've come back from dinner and I don't sleep as well, and I know it's because of something I had to eat. So good news, bad news. When you clean up your diet, everything falls into place. The bad news is if you go off, you really notice it, right? You really feel the difference. So, diet as an anti-aging strategy, diet is still the primary driver of a lot of what we do.
Now, do you think about, is your focus primarily at this point food quality, or do you, are macros a consideration? Are you trying to be in ketosis, for example?
Good point. I'm not trying to be in ketosis. I sort of have keto days because, I have a piece of fish for lunch and a vegetable, and a piece of steak for dinner and a vegetable and a glass of wine. And that's my day's, allotment. And that's a very keto day. I don't have a lot of days where my carbs will be up to over 100. But if they are, because of metabolic flexibility, I don't feel drag ass because I had carbs and now I'm feeling like I need to take a nap. That doesn't really happen to me. What I said about eating dinner or a dessert is more of a immediate response to blood sugar and things like that, I don't sleep as well. But, if it were during the day or the next day, I wouldn't be dragging because I got kicked out of keto, for instance, which is a line I used to hear from a lot of people who are, all keto all the time. And when they went off and when they'd have 120 grams of carbs, they'd feel like crap. Well, that's not metabolic flexibility. That's just an allegiance to keto that didn't really correct a lot of the problems that were going on. So I'm keto-ish, and but almost by just the nature of the choices I make. It's not like I'm purposely trying to be keto. I'm just, because I know to eliminate certain things that don't serve me well, and I know to include other things. Protein becomes the big driver of everything. Like as long as I can focus on protein for the day, I almost don't care what the other macros are. And again, as my philosophy has evolved over the years, there was a time when I was an adherent of Ron Rosedale who would say, oh my God, anything over 40 grams of protein a day, and you're going to, mTOR is going to come into play, and it's a precancerous sort of route, and it's an aging strategy, not an anti-aging strategy. Past that, I think we've decided that, all these things like mTOR play a positive role for the most part. And we want to promote mTOR to a certain extent because that's muscle growth, and certainly if you're under 20 years old, you want a lot of that. So I look now at protein being sort of the main driver. Like if I and it's not just the main driver of as the preeminent macro, because the body can pretty much do anything with amino acids, with protein, right? You can do gluconeogenesis and you can make glucose. Most of the sources of protein have fat, alongside accompanying, so you're going to get fat with that anyway. So there is a rationale behind a carnivore diet that says, you really don't need a lot of extra. Well, you certainly don't need any extra macronutrients if you're eating carnivore, and you probably don't need that much in the way of micronutrients if you're eating carnivore. So using protein as the primary driver, and protein being the most satisfying and, in my world, tasty choice of food, it makes eating really easy, and it's almost like too easy. Like you go to a restaurant and I'm going to have a steak or lamb or even a pork chop. I don't eat so much chicken, but a fair amount of fish, shellfish, shrimp. I mean, it's a great way to live. It's not inexpensive if you're dining out a lot, but if you're eating at home, it's a way to make that work for sure.
Yeah, not everybody's Mark Sisson, okay?
No, but I mean, I have a lot of friends who will eat 4 pounds of ground beef a day.
Oh yeah, there is a way to optimize for protein.
And love it, yeah, and love it
economically.
And think, and some of the best meals I have are when my wife will cook like a shepherd's pie or something like that. So, I'm not. It's just,
yeah.
In Miami, the tendency is to dine out a fair amount.
Yeah, I mean, if you're living in Miami and you're not eating out on a regular basis, you're kind of like, what are you doing?
What's the point?
Yeah. No, you're so right.
Yeah.
But I love that you're not dogmatically keto. I think it's just a testament to when you're a person who's as active as you are, and you're probably living in some state of glycogen depletion at any given point, and it just gives you a much higher leeway to consume carbohydrates. And then inevitably you're going to oscillate in and out of ketosis just because of that.
Yeah. And what happens is, as you develop metabolic flexibility over the years, your body doesn't want to be in ketosis. Ketosis is a term that describes an excess of ketones in the bloodstream. It's basically the osis part of it means it's not really desirable.
Yeah.
You don't want to be in ketosis. You want to be making ketones, but you don't want to overproduce them. And as your body gets more and more metabolically flexible, it learns how many ketones to make.
Yeah.
And the cool thing is the liver can make 750 calories a day worth of ketones. And most of these ketones go to fuel the brain. Well, the brain's daily requirement for energy is rarely above 500 calories a day, between 500 and 600 calories a day. So call it 20 to 24 calories per hour. And because the brain has a steady state consumption of fuel, it doesn't go up and down with wide swings. If you become keto adapted and fat adapted and metabolically flexible, the liver just goes, I'm just going to pump out 20 calories worth of ketones every hour. It's easy. And I've got access to body fat. And I know how to take the fat out of storage. So it becomes so a lot of guys who've been like keto for 10 years are almost rarely in ketosis, as defined by 0.5 millimolar or higher.
What about for listeners who are wondering, like, what's the point? Like, what is the point anyway of wanting to see an elevation of ketones? Isn't it all just like calories in, calories out? Is there an anti-aging argument to be made for this intermittent dalliance with ketosis?
Well, I think ketosis is more of a 3-week program to embark on as a strategy to help develop metabolic flexibility. But once you develop the metabolic flexibility, then the benefits of being in ketosis all the time start to diminish. You don't need to be in ketosis all the time, because if you're metabolically flexible, your body gets energy from whatever substrate's available and doesn't care. And then because of your selectivity with the types of food you eat, you almost selectively get rid of sugars, sweetened beverages, processed carbs. And if you're eating just real food, it's basically meat, fish, fowl, eggs, nuts, seeds, which are all fat and protein, vegetables, which are free carbs for the most part. You can eat as many vegetables as you want. and some fruit. And the fruit, because it's mostly fructose, doesn't have the same effect on insulin. So you don't get the wild insulin swings from eating fruit that you normally would from eating sugar or from eating bread, pasta, rice, cereal, all that stuff. So it's kind of a self-selecting mechanism where there's a point at which if you eliminate those offensive foods, you don't even have to think about it. If this is your choice of what you're going to eat, you don't count the macros that way. You don't count the grams of carbs or the net carbs. You just eat.
Yeah, it's like if your goal is to be able to have a way of eating that allows for rice or bread or sandwiches or wraps or bowls of pasta as your primary foods, then you're going to have to create some kind of budget for yourself because it's just so easy to overindulge on those foods. But if you remove them, I think it makes a really great, it just makes it a lot more effortless to.
And it does. And I will tell you that I had an amazing bowl of pasta a couple nights ago. I knew what I was doing, didn't think twice about it, didn't, guilt myself over the carb content, just knew it was going to be great. And it was gluten-free and it was, a creamy sauce and it was wonderful. I don't need to do that every night. I don't need to do that, more than once in a while, but I also like to eat. I love a variety of food. I don't want to deprive myself, which is also why some nights, again, if I'm in a great restaurant, I've got this great yeasty bread that's making its rounds on the table. I'll take a chunk of it and some butter and enjoy, with reckless abandon.
With reckless abandon.
Yeah.
In the middle of COVID, because I was just ordering up food, because I couldn't leave my house. And I was getting so sick of all of my options, my typical options, like all the food that I love. It's what I was eating 24 hours a day. And I barely had an appetite to boot. So one day I decided to just like completely go outside of the norm. And I ordered an entire pizza, like a gluten-free pizza from this place called Pizzana in LA, which actually has pretty good gluten-free pizza. And I ate the whole thing with reckless abandon. And it was great.
You didn't go quite outside the norm because it was gluten-free.
It was still gluten-free pizza. Yeah, that's true.
But but I mean, so there's a workaround there for you. You had a great pizza, it didn't affect you negatively that much, probably.
No. Yeah, I mean, I was also, to be fair, in a probably pretty stark calorie deficit during those 8 days, and I was barely moving. But your resting energy expenditure, I think, when you're sick, probably raises because your body's just fighting.
Yeah. If you've got your temperature is up a couple of degrees, it really increases your metabolic rate substantially.
Yeah. So I was torching calories, and I definitely wasn't eating enough. So
yeah, I lost 10 pounds. Probably 5 of it during COVID.
Wow.
Most of it because I lost my appetite. Because that whole thing about losing taste and smell. I remember cooking a steak for myself, and I was living alone. My wife had banished me from the house once I got COVID. So I was like literally living alone, which is fine. And I cooked a big, beautiful like steak, and I knew it was beautiful because I bought like 5 of them at the same time, and I'd already cooked a couple, so I knew it was going to be spectacular, and it tasted like rubber. And I couldn't even have more than 3 bites. And so I get how how critical smell and taste is to the whole process of eating and everything. Of course, everybody who had COVID who's in this field, the light bulb went on. Oh my God, if we can create a thing that something you put in your nose, but just before dinner time, that would have people eating less. This would be $1 trillion idea.
It would be $1 trillion idea. Yeah. Oh my God. Imagine something that just like temporarily takes away your there are some things that you can like let dissolve on your tongue that, for example, disallow you temporarily to taste sweet.
Yeah.
But I don't, none of those products ever took off as like a real weight loss strategy. So what else? How do you, Mark, tell me about your sleep regimen. Like what's your like before bed sleep routine like? Because we know that sleep is crucially important when it comes to anti-aging.
Right. So when I'm in California, we have a house that we rent in the Palisades. We visit our kids every once in a while here. So when I'm here, we have a jacuzzi on the roof. So my wife and I just go up, take a jacuzzi around 10 o'clock, 10:30, go to bed. I get at least 8 hours, try to get 9. Zero apologies for that.
I love that.
Big fan of sleep.
Same.
And in Florida, my routine is I'm in a condo and we have a spa sort of thing at the base of it. So I do a fire and ice routine. I do 15 minutes at 195 degrees in the sauna, and then I'll do 5 minutes at say 47 degrees cold plunge. I might warm up a little bit after that, in just because if I get out after that amount of time, I might shiver all night. I don't want to do that, but I like doing that before bed, and that just I sleep like a baby. Fantastic. So for me, blackout curtains, white noise. Try to go to bed at about the same time, usually between 10:30 and 11:30 at night. And never wake up to an alarm, just wake up naturally. Again, just a big fan of getting quality sleep, and think that it's probably the single most overlooked aspect of good health across the board, no matter what field of expertise you're in. Sleep is right up there with, if you don't have good sleep, you're not going to get the results that you're seeking.
So important. Do you watch any TV before bed?
Sometimes, yeah. Stupid stuff, but there's so much good. I shouldn't say stupid. There's a lot of good TV on these days.
A lot. What was the last good thing that you watched?
The last good thing. Here's the thing. I put them out of my brain so quickly. Like I watched a show called White Lotus. We finished last night. Have you heard about it?
I think I've heard of it, but I don't know what it's about.
It's like, but it was short enough that after 3 episodes in, we didn't want to abandon it. We knew that it was going to be over in 6 episodes. So, I mean, I don't want to, somebody might really like it. It was a good character story, but, I like Yellowstone. I can't wait for the next season of Succession. I like Billions. I mean, there's a lot of cool shows. I would say my favorite show in the past bunch of years is called The Night Of.
Oh, yeah. I remember that on HBO, right?
Amazon, maybe HBO. Yeah. It's a six episode series, really extremely well done. But I also read. I've been reading a lot of Ken Follett recently. So I try to read before I go to sleep. I don't like to watch TV before going to sleep.
Yeah, I mean, because the light from the TV, it can be very disruptive. The last total non sequitur, or not a non sequitur, but the last amazing thing that I saw, I watched it when I had COVID, was it's on Netflix. It's called, I just want to give a shout out to it because it was so good. It was called Brand New Cherry Flavor.
Wow.
And the title doesn't really mean anything. It's called Brand New Cherry Flavor, but it's one of the darkest, most twisted, scary, psychological thrillers that I've ever seen. And I happen to love David Lynch and like really dark, psychosexual, odysseys down the rabbit hole. And it was that. It just, with every episode, it gets weirder and crazier. And I just loved it. I thought it was amazing. Really, really well done. And I'm kind of obsessed with the actress that was in it. So that was great. Brand New Cherry Flavor. Definitely check that out on Netflix. It's a miniseries. It's like 8 episodes.
Yeah. I think, again, just to sort of go back to the pre sleep routine, I try to read as the last thing. And I try to read, historical fiction or something that's entertaining, because most of my career, I've just been reading science documents.
Science stuff, yeah.
Or other people's books, in our field, how to and self-help and things like that. So now I'm in this, sort of historical, and I like regular, fiction, cop, thriller type stuff too.
Yeah. Do you have blackout curtains in your bedroom?
Yes.
Blackout curtains.
Yep.
Do you keep the temperature at a certain
67?
67.
Yep. And I have a chili pad. And that's been a great device. I don't know if you know what a chili pad is. Right?
Yeah, I have an Uller.
Okay. Yeah. Uller. Yeah.
They're awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think, that everyone, the term game changer is sort of what everyone says when they purchase one and experience it. It's a game changer in terms of how you sleep.
Yeah. Awesome. Actually, last night I had dinner with the founder of the company. Todd.
Todd's in town?
I think, I don't know if he's still in town, but he was here last night. Okay. Yeah, I had dinner with him. Yeah, it was my first time meeting him.
Wow.
Yeah,
okay.
with David Nurse.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, our mutual friend David. I don't think, they might not know that you're in town or something. I don't know.
Maybe, yeah. It's so funny because I was going to call Todd the other day.
Oh,
So,
cool.
yeah, should have.
Yeah, no, it's a great product.
Yeah.
They gifted me one, but I have no financial affiliation with the company, and I love it.
Yeah.
It definitely, I'm a hot sleeper, and it
Yeah.
keeps my bed cool.
Yeah.
So it's solved that problem ever since I got it and installed it. I don't wake up sweaty anymore, nothing like that.
Yeah.
Which is awesome. Morning rituals. What?
Yeah. Morning is cup of coffee, really, strong, dark coffee.
Black?
No, put the heaviest cream I can find in it.
Dairy, like real dairy cream.
Yeah, real dairy, raw cream.
Wow.
Yeah, and then I do religiously do the crossword puzzles. So if I'm in Miami, I actually get physical papers delivered. So I do the Sudokus and the can-cans and the crosswords and everything, and it's just sort of my ritual. Here I just go online and do them, but that's like my thing. I can't start the day until I finish the crossword, and then basically, I go to work. I start, either writing or answering emails or that sort of thing. Usually break around 10:30 and go work out. So I do a mid-morning workout, always fasted. Could be, weights, could be a bike ride. Yeah, again, when I'm in the Palisades, I have a fat bike and I take it down to Mescal, and I'm at low tide. I ride down to Venice Pier and back on the beach.
Oh, wow.
It's spectacular, and no one's discovered that here. It's weird because I do it all the time in Miami, and it's sort of a thing in Miami Beach.
Are you still getting the ocean every day too? Doing what is it called? Where you're like,
oh no, stand up paddling.
Yeah.
So I haven't paddled that much here because my boards are up in Malibu, and I haven't gotten out there that much. But in Miami, I try to go 2 or 3 times a week in the ocean. And so that would be my sort of mid-morning break. Come back and work some more, make some phone calls, have some meetings, lunch 1:30 or 2. Back to work in the afternoon. Typically around 6, I break and I get on the drums. So I have a electronic drum kit. I have the exact same kit in our house in LA and in Miami.
That's
So
awesome.
I it's all familiar to me.
Well, learning a musical instrument is one of the best ways to keep your brain young.
Yeah. So I try and do an hour of put on the headphones so no one can hear me except me, and I'm really loud. And I'm usually playing to rock standards from the 70s or 80s. So that's very cool. And I just got a DJ controller board, so I'm going to start doing some
DJ Sisson?
Yeah.
Damn, watch out. Watch out.
That's my new thing. So I'm trying a lot of stuff as the years go on.
That's awesome, man. You show no signs of like, I'm ready to retire, nothing like that.
I mean, I didn't try, but for two years after I sold the company, I was like, didn't have a lot going on, tried a few things here and there, and just, it's too, I never see myself retiring ever. It's just there's too much fun doing stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. Are you, when it comes to coffee, are you just like a one cup a day kind of guy?
Yeah. One big strong cup, and that's it. I don't do any in the afternoon. And again, not because it affects me negatively. I could have a 4-shot espresso with some cream in it at a Starbucks if I'm having a meeting with somebody. But usually when I do that in the afternoon, I'm like, why? I didn't need to do that.
Yeah.
I had the sort of the hankering for the coffee taste, but I really didn't need to do that. And I like to also I like to go between lunch and dinner without eating. I just feel like, as I said in 2 meals a day, the longer you go without eating, the better it is for your body. The more good stuff happens in your body. So people who are snacking all day long they're not giving themselves a chance to recover and repair and get into any form of autophagy.
Well, for digestion alone, I think that is such good advice. Are you familiar with the migrating motor complex? It's fascinating. It basically it activates after 90 minutes of not eating. So it's a system that's very sensitive to calories.
Yep.
So it literally, if you eat anything, or water is obviously fine, but if you eat anything with any caloric value, it basically resets the timer. But after 90 minutes, this system gets going in your digestive system is basically, it's referred to as a housekeeping wave.
Yeah.
It basically like sweeps debris, bacteria, dead, epithelial cells, through your small intestine, from your stomach to your small intestine, all the way down to your large intestine, and constantly subverting that that complex with like chronic snacking throughout the day. It's one of the reasons why people develop SIBO.
Yeah.
Because that one of the jobs of the MMC, the migrating motor complex, is to get bacteria out of the small intestine.
Out, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean it prompts a discussion about what the nature of human fecal matter should be, right? And so many people think, well, I have to eat a lot of bran and I have to eat a lot of fiber in order to sweep my colon clean. Well, no, the body has mechanisms to take all the dead cells. In fact, fecal matter should really only exists to get rid of the dead bacteria, the 100 trillion cells or whatever, 60 trillion cells that reside in your colon have a massive turnover. They don't live for weeks or months. They live for days, hours and days sometimes. And there's a massive turnover. That should be the primary reason for a bowel movement is to get rid of dead bacteria, dead skin cells, epithelial cells, things like that. Not undigested food and big pieces of fiber from twigs and bran and stuff like that. And yet people have this image of what the colon, is supposed to look like and how they think they get constipated because they're not eating enough fiber, when in fact many people are getting constipated because they eat too much fiber and they're eating too often, which is not giving this migrating motor complex an opportunity to do the job.
Toilets in the Netherlands, they have these shelves that they think that the shelves are so that people can like inspect their poo. Yeah, we would be mortified in the West if we went into a gas station. There was a shelf in the toilet, but it's very common in the Netherlands. I think it's so important. You gotta look at your poop.
Yeah,
and I think what's interesting that you brought up is that like most of the time when you see undigested food particles, you're not seeing undigested pieces of meat. You're seeing undigested plant matter.
Yeah, exactly. And again, it's all crazy. I was, I had IBS from the age of 14 to 47. And so I probably never had, I never took a decent crap my whole life.
Wow.
Until I got that sorted out. And, and the irony now is that the more carnivore I go, the more comfortable everything is. It's like, it's crazy how that works. And again, it was all based on erroneous assumptions about you have to eat more fiber and you have to eat more plant matter and you have to eat more bran. And you have to take Metamucil. And did you ever hear of a book called Fiber Menace by Konstantin Monastersky?
No.
Oh, it's a great, it's been out for 20 years.
Wow.
Fiber Menace. And he basically just, he takes the whole concept of fiber and rams it down the toilet.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of, with research on the microbiome and the microbiome becoming sort of this like buzzworthy thing and all the books that have come out about the microbiome, there's been this like rush to get people to eat more fiber. But if you're not careful.
Well, and that's interesting in and of itself, because the microbiome, which you are led to believe requires fiber, soluble and insoluble fiber as a substrate to make short-chain fatty acids to feed. But a better substrate is collagen. It's collagen peptides. So the bacteria in the gut respond to collagen and to collagen peptides by creating these short-chain fatty acids, obviating the need to take in any fiber of any kind, which is why carnivores who eat nose to tail have great craps.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's super. I've heard that before, but it just like, I'm trying to wrap my head around it.
Yeah.
That collagen. What is it like? Is it glycine? Is it just like what?
Now, it's the collagen. It's the peptides. It's it's glycine. It's
the collagen that you eat makes its way down to your large intestine and becomes like a fermentable substrate.
Yes.
For microbiota.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
Yeah. And if you think in terms of again, nose to tail eating and skin, which is collagen, and gristle, which is collagen, knuckles and bone heads and all that stuff. When I was a kid, my mother used to give me grief because I would eat the ends off the chicken bones, right? The soft white, parts of the chicken bones.
You used to eat those?
Yeah, they were great, chewy, crunchy. So much of what we think we know, like the microbiome, which has been a thing now for 10 years, but really the last 5 years. And even then we don't know, anything about it in
Yeah.
terms of what's better or not. There are 3,000, species of bacteria at least. And I know people are having their biome tested and, and they get the results back but the results can change from 1 week to the next based on your diet.
100%.
And so people who are getting FMT, fecal microbial transplant, like how do you pick your donor? Because it's going to depend on your diet as well. It's really early days for a lot of this stuff. Having said that, FMT is a godsend for people who have, C. diff.
Yeah, but I feel the same way about those microbiome tests. I mean, it's like the stool sample is going to show probably a different microbial profile depending on the time of day that you or like where within the stool you sample.
Yeah.
So there's all these different variables, and I've always been very skeptical of any of that stuff.
It falls under the category, I think, of too much information, too much data. Like what do you even do with it? Like it's insignificant data. It's almost like this wearable tech world that we live in, and I want to measure everything, and I want to wear a continuous blood glucose monitor to see. Well, no, I mean, I like if you eat well right now, and you wear a continuous blood glucose monitor, and you get some information, how are you going to change? How are you really going to change your life? Is it going to make that much of a difference? And is it even a bad thing if your glucose goes to 140 after a certain meal and then drops right back down to 88?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think it's physiologically completely normal.
Yeah.
And so I think the problem with these, I think blood glucose monitors can be really useful, but I think that they, what they do is they pathologize.
So absolutely, they can be useful to people who have pathologic conditions. But what I'm seeing is in the biohacker world, these people, they want to measure everything, and sleep trackers. I don't need a sleep tracker to tell me how well I slept last night. And in fact, if I have a sleep tracker that gives me a little bit of bad information, maybe it didn't record things appropriately, then maybe I'm going to get freaked out about the fact that I thought I slept well. You're telling me I didn't? Come on, seriously. When I was in France, all of us would walk. There were 6 or 8 of us at any one time walking to and from dinner. Everyone's tracker would have a different number of how many steps they took. I don't wear one, but I mean,
oh my God,
it's like, what do you do with the information? It's just I guess it's like a parlor game or something like that, and you have bets with people to see if you can get 40,000 steps a day and whatever. But the point is, so much of the information is not just superfluous, but could be deleterious to a path of better health. And from my perspective, all that matters is how do you feel. That's all that matters. If you're overweight but you feel great, I got no problem with that. If you're if you have a medical condition but you still feel you're joyous and you feel great, then the data isn't going to shift one way or the other, or maybe it'll shift with medication or whatever. But really all that matters is how do you feel?
Are you happy? Are you hungry? Are you horny?
That's right.
Those are like the 3,
yeah.
The 3 H's.
Yeah.
Of it's like your check-in. That should be your check-in every day.
Yep.
Hey guys, if you enjoyed that conversation, you're going to love this one.
Where do people get information? What do people believe? How do they know to believe it? Right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, where do you get your information?
Yeah, I mean, we were talking before we got rolling. I go to like the primary literature. I tend to go to PubMed.
Yeah. But
and
no one else does.
Right.
People don't even know what PubMed is. And for out there listening, PubMed is the National Library of Medicine's database.
Yeah.
So to be in there, it means that it is a primary bit of information. So it was a peer-reviewed article in a peer-reviewed journal that was vetted by a board that, it's far from perfect.
Yeah.
But it's as good as we have.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the most user-friendly experience. No. I'll say that. No. And not every paper is open access.
Nope.
So you have to find your way around paywalls if that's something that you want to, explore further. But I also think that there are some good resources out there that are written for lay audience. Like we were talking about this website, Healthline. I think it's called Healthline. Yeah. They're an evidence-based, website. And
but how do they stay around? Who pays for them to exist?
Yeah. I don't know.
Advertisers.
Yeah. Which doesn't necessarily invalidate a point of view, but
No, but I don't think certain advertisers are going to advertise if there's information there that is contradicting their claims about their product. So I think
right.
nothing against Healthline, and maybe it's as good as it gets too, but I just take everything with a grain of salt today.
Yeah.
Documentaries are absolutely not where you should get any information. It's a form of entertainment.
Yeah.
Um,
So where do your clients get their information from? Like, where do you like
they blindly trust me.
just from you?
And I have fun with it. I was like, you know what you need? Fruity Pebbles twice a day, Count Chocula, snacks. I guess that's why I've been able to stay in business as long as I have, because there's a certain trust they have with me. I'm not trying to sell them something. So even if I work with certain foods or brands or whatever it is, I've never endorsed a weight loss product or a cleanse or anything that, nothing against her, but Jillian Michaels would ever do. It's very different.
Yeah,
So,
of course. I very much appreciate that. Some of your clients, I mean, they're like on tours around the world. They're preparing for the latest, big blockbuster action movie. When a client presents to you, actor, musician, whatever, and they've got to get in shape fast, like walk me through the process.
So depending on if they're trying to lose body fat or look gaunt, like, Jesus in the Passion had to look gaunt. Another client we worked with was playing a caveman, had to look gaunt. Someone else had to put on muscle mass. Putting on muscle mass takes way more time than losing weight. And also depends on what the person currently looks like and how long they currently look like that. So if they used to be an athlete and they kind of gained a bunch of weight, it's not so difficult to get them back to that. If this person's never had muscle mass on them, all of a sudden you're like, oh gosh, this is going to be a challenge. But if they're within striking distance, as fast as 5-6 weeks, you can make a tremendous difference.
Yeah. Because putting on muscle for somebody that's already at one point had a good bit of muscle, you benefit from what? Muscle memory, right?
Exactly. Or if there's someone who had a kid and gained weight from the pregnancy and I had to get them to lose it, that's different because they only had gained weight for 9 months or so. So getting them,
Nutritionally, I think there's this perhaps misconception that everybody in Hollywood, they go on these like crash diets. Is that an approach that you take?
No.
Or is it a more sort of moderate?
When I started my business, an actor would come to me and they're like, I need to look a certain way by a certain date.
Yeah.
And I would shackle them to the elliptical or treadmill for an hour before our workouts 5 days a week and do these exhaustive long workouts and then keep them after for a cardio cool down and put them on a super strict diet. And it worked. And then after that scene was shot or after that month of scenes were being done shot, I wouldn't hear from that person for a year and a half.
Wow.
And things are different today because digital media exists 365 days a year. So if that person looks great and then has to go do some interview somewhere or someone's grocery shopping and sees them at 50 pounds heavier, they'll take a picture and post it and they lose an endorsement. And so today there's this need to be moderate, to have balance, to approach things with a real sustainable way.
Yeah. But like somebody coming to you wanting to put on muscle quickly, they just booked the latest Avengers movie. They got to pack on some meat. What are nutritionally and from an exercise standpoint, what are you prioritizing?
Both. You mean they're both essential? It's like when you have a flower, do you need air or do you need water or sun? You need them all. So without one, it just won't work.
Right.
So if they're putting on muscle mass, I would do probably 4 to 5 days a week of resistance exercise, keeping their heart rate below a certain amount. The workouts will be slower, less about high intensity. The food is a massive part of it. I probably wouldn't have them doing too much cardiovascular activity. And it doesn't work for everybody. It's more important to look muscular on camera than be muscular.
Interesting.
So if you look at Jean-Claude Van Damme at any of his early movies, Bloodsport or any of those, I think he was 130 pounds or 140 pounds.
That's it?
Yeah. He's a little guy.
Wow.
So on camera, definition shows bigger muscles than bigger muscles without definition show on camera. So on camera, I don't look as muscular as someone 50 pounds lighter than me. And so proportion is another thing. So if you're all if you're out of whack and you're all anterior dominant, you don't look as good on camera as if you have a little more balance to your physique.
That's so interesting.
And I hate to say it, but most of these people, like Brad Pitt, his legs were like sticks back. When people talk about his physique back in the day, it was all upper. A lot of these guys are all upper body.
Dude, Brad Pitt's body in Fight Club, that was like the platonic ideal for like what I think many men,
and Troy,
including myself,
and Troy.
He got a little bigger for Troy, didn't he?
He did. He got bigger for Troy, but he was a little dude
right, like in a t-shirt, he'd be like a skinny guy.
He's like a little dude. So I think if you take anyone who has some muscle, not even a lot, and you get them really lean, they appear really muscular. So that Bruce Lee, I think was 130 pounds.
Wow,
he was a tiny dude, but he could see every muscle flex when he moved.
I think there's this perception though that like people in Hollywood have some kind of like magic formula, but what's shocking about what you're saying is that it's not magic.
No,
it's just
motivation.
It's motivation, discipline.
Yep.
And the same tools that's what I think is so empowering here is that they're utilizing the same tools that we have access to.
100%. There's no secret exercise. There's no secret machine. They're using dumbbells and a bench and a TRX, and they're not using any special equipment. So if you read about it, it's not a thing. And they're not getting any special foods that you don't have access to. So yeah, it's really attainable. And the workouts are not overly long because Hallie, the first book was called 5 Factor Fitness because the workouts were 5 days a week. It was during her lunch, which only is 30 minutes long on a film set in Quebec. We were shooting Gothica at the time, so it was on Montreal. And so she had to be back in her trailer in under 30 minutes. We had 25 minutes. So we did, 5-minute cardio warm up and then a 5-minute upper body, 5-minute lower body, 5-minute abs, 5-minute cardio cool down, done.
Wow.
And that was how we transformed her.
So quick.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Speaking of exercises and anterior dominance, you on Instagram, you've taken a controversial stance on 2 exercises that I do pretty well. One of them I used to do pretty regularly, and then the other one I still do pretty regularly. Battle ropes and planks. Mm-hmm. You're not a fan.
You mean an isometric plank? You just stay there in the plank position?
Yeah.
Battle ropes, for sure not.
You're not a fan. I used to love battle ropes.
Yeah.
And then I kind of started to feel a little bit of what I read you say about them. But explain to my audience why battle ropes can be problematic.
Well, I always like to flip it back when someone's telling me they do an exercise and they love it. I'll say, rather than me telling you why you shouldn't do it, tell me why you should do it. What does that exercise do for you?
Mm-hmm. Well, I thought it was a great high intensity. It was like a fun and novel way of doing a little bit of anaerobic work at the end of my workouts, a little bit of like HIIT training.
Okay. So it was a way to get your heart rate up.
Yeah.
Okay. And how long at any one time would you do it for?
I would do it for 30 to 40 seconds all out. And I would do like 3 or 4 sets.
And do you think it's more lower body or upper body you're using?
I found that it was more upper body.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mainly upper body.
Yeah.
And of the body parts that are mainly being used, what do you think are being used the most?
Probably your core, your shoulders, your chest, your anterior deltoids.
But not chest.
You're not your chest.
No.
Huh. Your
arms.
arms.
Watch my neck.
Traps.
So you're doing a lot of things. You're putting a lot of force on your shoulders, on your levator scapula, on your trapezius, on all these things that you're lifting yourself up with. Your brachioradialis, your bicep, but not in a way where you're actually getting full extension, full contraction of anything. You're just sort of this partial tight.
Yeah.
Holding your breath. It's horrible. Look, if someone does it and it brings them joy and it doesn't hurt them, no one has to stop doing it. It's not, stop now or you're going to end up in the hospital at all. I just find that these exercises, really no one talked about them before Instagram. And I think there's a lot of exercises that I call fitness porn that you see on Instagram because they look great. So whenever I do a photo shoot for, whether it be Aloe or, some other company, they're always like, okay, we need to film this. We need movement in the shot.
Yeah,
can you use ropes? Because it photographs really well, which it does. The most effective exercises might not photograph well. Jogging in place, just not.
Yeah.
It doesn't look very good.
Right.
you know? So I'm not a big fan of that. Secondly, HIIT training, I think, is extraordinarily overdone. I think the research on HIIT training is sort of grasping for straws,
Interesting.
keeping in mind who America is. The majority of America is deconditioned and overweight. HIIT training is the worst thing they should ever be doing.
Why is that?
If you're deconditioned and overweight, doing high intensity training is not going to help you lose weight in a safe, sustainable way. Number one, there's the rate of perceived exertion. Humans naturally avoid things that feel difficult. So if you can do something that, hey, that's not bad. I like that. That wasn't too bad. You'll do it more often and you'll do it more frequently and for longer. So it's got a high rate of perceived exertion. Secondly, things that are high intensity tend to have a higher injury occurrence. You're moving at a faster pace. Thirdly, your cardiovascular system is going to be the limiting factor in your ability to sustain, not the muscles you're trying to train. So I try and tell people there's two kinds of physical activity. There's steps or aerobic, and there's resistance training to strengthen, tone, and tighten your muscles and your connective tissue and your bones, your body. They're different. You can combine them, but it's the Swiss Army knife thing. The Swiss Army knife has a toothpick, but it sucks. And it has scissors, but it can't cut anything.
Right.
So even though it does a lot of things, it doesn't do either one incredibly well.
Right.
So I tell people, hit a step goal every day to burn calories and lose weight. Resistance train to tone, tighten, strengthen your body. Resistance training at such a high intensity where your heart rate is through the roof, you have general fatigue rather than local fatigue. I want people to focus more on local fatigue. I want it to be more precision. What's the least you need to do rather than how much you can do? And I think that's the miss on the approach.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate that. And
again, don't stop. I mean, if people love HIIT training because it's cathartic and there's an endorphin rush that comes with doing super high intensity things and there's a stress release and there's so many other intangibles, but from a pure logical perspective on transforming your body, it's not the best way to go about it.
Well, it is super intense, but I think the value add, what makes it compelling, at least from a research standpoint, is that, imagine you're able to get the benefits of a 30-minute cardiovascular steady state workout in less time, right? In like a shortened, super high intensity. So it might be more intense than that moderate intensity bout on the treadmill, but it requires less time. It requires 10 minutes as opposed to 30 minutes, or 5 minutes as opposed to 30 minutes. To me, I think that's like there's a value proposition there. That
I was pulling up something. There was 3 new studies that just came out showing that HIIT training research was sort of reaching a bit. And
interesting.
And so, people love to find new bits of information that can support or validate something that they're doing. Anything that supports a magic pill, getting more done in less time. People love that stuff.
Yeah.
So there was research showing, one set exercise, back in the day, Darden, that was a lot of his stuff that propelled Nautilus strength equipment. It was single set. And so if you did one set of exercise per body part, that's all you needed to do. And there's a lot of evidence showing that you can have benefits from it. But years later, we look back and we realize it's actually not muscular benefits, it's neurological benefits. So in the increase in strength you're getting is purely neurological, not really muscular. And secondly, you're not really changing the way your body looks. And thirdly, you're not any healthier for it.
Right.
So I think it's important to question this stuff. And again, if someone loves HIIT training and it's great, but what are you doing it for?
Yeah.
What's the number one reason that people exercise for?
Yeah. Probably to look better naked. There you go.
Yep.
Yeah. It's interesting, but battle ropes in particular, I thought it was interesting that you kind of called them out for the fact that it just puts more focus on this anterior. We spend so much of our time sitting and just doing things that are pulling our shoulders forward, typing. Yeah. And so you're doing this battle rope thing, which, I started to feel, because I have low back issues, like persistent. It's way better now than it's been. Shout out to boxing for really helping, get my lower back in shape. But that's just another sport, right? Where you're just like, your shoulders are coming forward.
I tell my clients never to box.
Never to box. Interesting.
Because it's all anterior.
Yeah.
Not only is it anterior, it's trunk rotation. If you have a bad back, you should avoid trunk rotation at any cost because your discs do this.
Yeah.
Thirdly, you're asymmetrical. So you always have if you're right-handed, your
Right.
left leading foot. So you're doing things for extended periods of time without balance. So you end up with a dominant posture. Fourthly, there's impact. And so impact over years causes arthritis. As a hockey player, I have arthritis in my hands from punching helmets.
Wow.
Again, don't stop it. If it brings you joy and I tell people when I give advice, none of these are like, stop right now.
Yeah. Well, I feel that boxing has helped, but I definitely appreciate, there was another post where you said that with your clients, you generally try to get them to sort of overcompensate for this anterior dominance by prioritizing back exercises, that's the first time I've ever heard anybody recommend that, to actually like.
I've never let a female client do push-ups, flies, bench press, dumbbell chest press.
Wow.
We hardly ever do biceps. Almost everything we do for my female clients specifically. Male clients, there's more of a desire to have a muscular chest. So we do chest, but for every bit of pecs we do 2 rhomboid movements. And for every bicep we do, maybe we do biceps once a month, but we do triceps every week.
Wow.
And for all of our quad work, we make sure we do 50% more hamstring and glute work.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Just because the front gets so much more work.
Yeah. And just if you never exercised before in your life, just by living life, you're going to be anterior dominant. If you did exercise, you probably, when you started working out, I know when I started working out, it was bench press, bicep curls, and leg extensions.
Yeah.
And crunches, right?
Pretty much.
And so everything's going forward. And so you look at embryological development, when an embryo is a bud, it's like this. And then we spend, the next several years kind of going like this. And then we get back to like this. And then we're like old people like this again. So we want to delay that and kind of go back to Da Vinci's The Eternal Man.
What are some of your favorite back exercises?
An inverted TRX row. I find a TRX allows you to really train your upper back with some intensity.
Those are like the cables or whatever?
Like the yellow strap.
Yeah.
Reverse incline dumbbell row, single arm dumbbell row, reverse cable flies. And then, that all hits upper back, but then lots of glute work and hamstring work and tricep work. And yeah.
Is this also why you're not a fan of the plank?
I don't tell people not to plank, but I think that I prefer an active plank. So it's like when you train your biceps, do you just train them like this?
No, yeah.
When you train your triceps, do you train them like that?
You work them through the full range of motion.
So a plank is only strengthening your rectus abdominis at that one range of motion. So I think that there's to have an active plank, like a pike plank or a spider plank or a twist plank or any other plank where there's actual movement and the abdominals kind of lengthen and shorten a little bit.
Yeah, I like that. I appreciate that. Man, so much good stuff. When I think another misconception that people might have about people in Hollywood, big movie stars, Grammy, platinum singers and the like, that they have some secret anti-aging, tonic at their disposal.
Some do. I mean, some take hormones, right? Not the people I work with, but I know of some people that take hormones. And I know in California, there are a lot of controversial and, in my mind, unethical physicians who are willing to prescribe hormones to people ad hoc. So some do. You can generally tell which of your favorite actors are taking specifically growth hormone. You'll see over time their jaw widens. Sometimes their brow comes out. Their hands get a little gnarly and bigger, and knuckles, and
wow,
they get an underbite, or their teeth start spreading apart. So,
and why do they take growth hormone? Is it just to allow them to? Because growth hormone is not anabolic to muscle; it's anabolic to connective tissue,
to everything. So the difference is when you take anabolic steroids, which is the sex hormone derivative testosterone that's mainly produced by your testicles. That's why men have bigger muscles than women, because for the most part, men have more testosterone than women. That helps with the recovery of muscles and therefore allows you to build bigger muscles. Growth hormone helps promote the growth and turnover of every cell of the body. Your pancreas, your spleen, your bones, your ligaments, your eyeballs, everything. And the reason why growth hormone was originally used medically was if someone had what they call dwarfism. If you give it to them before puberty hits, it can actually help promote growth and drive them beyond where they were originally going to be. Right?
Wow.
And then people started dying from it because they got Jakob-Creutzfeldt disease. So then they were able to make it in a lab instead of taking it from a dead body. Now, when you take growth hormone as an adult, because your growth plates are sealed, your bones won't get longer. They'll just get thicker and denser. So your hands grow, your feet grow, your forehead grows, your jaw grows. And you get a condition called acromegaly. So if you look at, what's the motivational speaker, Anthony Robbins?
Tony Robbins, yeah.
So he has a genetic condition where he was born with an overactive pituitary gland. So you see him and his voice is deep and his jaw is big and his hands are massive. He was born with that condition. So that's why he's a huge person.
Yeah.
But if you take it as an adult, it makes every cell grow. If you have any genetic predisposition for cancer and you are taking medicine, and the definition of cancer is the uncontrollable growth of cells, and you're taking a drug, a hormone that aggressively tells your body to make more cells, you're most likely going to get cancer, get it sooner, get it more aggressively.
I have a good friend that has acromegaly.
Really?
And it's
How aggressive?
I mean, it's pretty aggressive. He's a pretty big person.
How old?
Looks older
Right.
than he is.
And most people with acromegaly don't live the full life term.
Yeah.
I hope he does though.
No, me too. Yeah. So you're not big on hormone. Like what about at a certain age, like TRT?
So I think whenever you do one thing to the body hormonally or through drugs, everything else gets affected. So everyone's like, oh no, I'm under the supervision of a doctor. And I'm like, but that doctor has no one taught that doctor how to do what he's doing to you. It was never part of their curriculum. And there is no research out there that they can even use. You're a guinea pig. So yeah, you're under the supervision of a doctor and you're their guinea pig. So it's funny, I had this conversation with my workout partner the other day, and he's around my age. He just turned 50. And I said, what's the age where we're just going to go all in? We're just going to take everything. We're going to take every little thing. And I made the joke, I'm like, at 85. He goes, no, think about it. The way that lifespans are getting longer and longer and longer, as long as we don't do something dumb, we could live a lot longer than 85. So he's like, I'm in for 90. I don't know what the number is, but I think there'll be at some point in my life where the risk is exceeded by the reward, but it's not until I'm much older.
Do your clients have people that I'm sure they have people that are like making food for them 24/7, things like that. That's gotta be a perk when you get to work with somebody who has that and they're able to stick to the dietary recommendations that you make in a way that's really rigorous.
It is. But I don't think it's necessary. So I think with a certain degree of success and wealth, you have options. You might not need those options, but it's nice having the luxury of having someone make your food.
Yeah.
But there's something about being connected to the food you eat. If you prepare it yourself, you're connected to it. You know exactly what goes in it. You feel it. You're part of it. It's simple to do. Most of my cookbooks, they're all 5-minute recipes with 5 ingredients or less and 5 steps or less. So you can do it. But I think when you're an actor on a film set and it's a minimum 12-hour shoot day, and it might be an hour to get to set, it might be an hour to get home from set, and you leave the house at 6 a.m. and you're coming home at 10 o'clock at night, you probably would benefit from having someone prepare your food.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I love going to the supermarket and preparing food for myself. And I also love going out to eat, but I don't think I would ever get to a place where I wanted to relegate that aspect of my life.
Me too. And I go through waves. Do you think you'll have kids?
Yeah.
It's funny, when you have kids, things change. You're just more tired and it's more about survival when they're really young. And as they get a little older, like, okay, they can go back to thriving again. So my kids now are 5 and 7. And so now I have the time where I can cook for myself and not just for them. I'm getting back into cooking again, which is really exciting. Before I came here, I cooked.
Do you cook?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
What kind of food?
I love breakfast food all day. all day.
Huge fan. Breakfast food.
All day.
What are some of your favorite breakfast foods?
I made this today before I came in. I made this. So I took these 4 ingredients: oats, egg whites, peanut butter, and banana. That has one of the essential amino acids, by the way, to complement that. And I put them in the bowl, all the ingredients, and I just quickly blended and mashed them all up, and I poured it in my skillet, and I made these pancakes, and then I just had them with berries.
Wow. Is that kind of a standard breakfast for you?
That was my lunch today.
Wow.
My breakfast was a scramble, 2 whole eggs, 3 whites, spinach, peppers, and some high fiber toast.
So you're not on a keto diet, obviously.
No.
I feel like there are a few celebs that have, publicly come out, big advocates for ketogenic dieting.
Yep.
What's your take on that?
They came out and then they went back in.
They came out.
So
they
it's
went
funny. I
back
had this conversation yesterday. A lot of them who swore by it.
Some of the big athletes, I don't know who they are because I don't follow sports, but like,
yeah, I don't know. And it's research tells us it's a terrible diet for athletics because your carbohydrates is the preferred energy system for sports and athletics. And so
explosive power, things like that.
All that stuff.
Yeah.
And again, research shows that keto can be helpful for short-term weight loss, but at the 12-month period of eating a traditional diet with carbohydrates or with the Mediterranean diet versus keto at the 12-month period, the weight loss actually went the other way. So the people with keto sort of plateaued and started gaining weight, and the Mediterranean diet got better and better and better. And so anytime if someone says, don't eat carrots, don't eat red peppers, what the hell? No, apples are bad for you. That's not how we're meant to be. Dr. Atkins, may he rest in peace, was very heavyset when he passed. I think that keto is not socially easy. I always say, when you have kids, would you want your kids to eat like that? And everyone's like, no, of course not. Well, then why would you want to eat like that? You end up with crazy breath. You've got methyl alcohol coming through your system. So your body's eating its own connective tissues and its own muscle and its fat as well.
Yikes.
And, I think that it is an extreme diet. Anything is extreme. Cut out, carbohydrates for the most part. Beef fat with bacon and butter is a meal. I don't get it.
Yeah. Well, I feel the same way as you. I mean, I'm a huge fan of plants in general. Yeah. Minimally processed whole plants. I prioritize them. I would say that my plate generally is 50% protein. Like a properly raised source of animal protein, if I can help it. Yeah. And then the rest is like grilled or roasted, asparagus, broccoli, a salad, what have you.
But beets will kill you on Atkins or keto.
Yeah. See, I love beets.
But there's a lot of great research recently on the health benefits of beets. I
know.
But not if you're on keto.
Chew beets, chew them slowly, because the microbiota in your mouth, your oral microbiome, is essential in the process of turning the nitrates in beets to the nitric oxide that circirculates in your blood vessels. Yeah. So you want to slow down when you're chewing beets and greens, just generally. Any nitrate. Yeah.
Are you one of those guys who eats the meals really slowly?
No, I don't. I eat very fast.
Okay.
I eat very fast.
Because I have a friend, Pete Kuzma, who I don't eat with him anymore because it's crazy. We're all done. He's still going on his 3rd bite.
It's kind of annoying when you're eating with people that are super slow.
Because he read an article 20 years ago about that, slow eating.
I'm gonna call out my friend Crosby Taylor. He's a very slow eater, but that's why one of the many reasons why he looks the way he does. But very slow eater. He's almost painfully slow to eat with. But I'm like a dog when I eat. I'm like a Labrador.
Which is also why I like using a blender, because all the research showing that the pre-digestion aspect of putting foods in a blender, vegetables, etc., breaks them down in a way which makes their micronutrients more bioavailable to us.
Yeah, there are definitely certain plant compounds. Like I did a post recently on alliums. Mm-hmm. There's a compound, almost like a defining compound of the category of produce called alliums, which include chives, leeks, scallions, onions, garlic, shallots. There's a compound called allicin that's created upon injury to the plant cells. It's a plant defense compound,
right?
And so there's definitely some truth to that, where if you chop these vegetables or if you blend them, crush them and let them sit for a little bit before you ingest them, or alternatively, you can just chew more slowly. But many people today just eat like I do, like really fast, that you're going to enhance the bioavailability of some of these
That's
really important
totally
bioactive
cool.
compounds. Yeah.
I can't eat alliums.
No, why not?
Genetically, my mom can't. Most of my family were missing whatever enzymes are needed. We are missing it. Like if any of us eat garlic or onions or chives, which I love the taste of, like we all love them, we are sick. It's the weirdest thing in the entire world. And we smell for 3-4 days.
No way.
Yeah. It's so weird. We can have a dish where you think there's no garlic in it. You can't even taste the garlic in it. I'll come home, and if I had it in the morning, let's say I have not shakshuka, which I didn't have, but something in the morning, I'll come home at night. I'll walk in the front door. My wife will say, "What did you eat?" It's that sensitive. And there's a genetic Ashkenazi thing.
Is there?
Yep. Not everyone. It's a small, but yeah, I have a lot of family and friends, the same thing.
But you just like GI distress from eating alliums?
I don't know where it happens along the chain.
Yeah.
But somewhere, like I can't break it down. And for the next 3-4 days, I just burp.
Wow. That's insane.
Yeah.
That's sad too. I mean, those are
so sad.
It's got to make eating out so difficult.
Well, Japanese we love because it's easy.
Yeah.
There's not a lot, most Italian food is not heavy in garlic or onions. American garlic food is, but not. So I eat a lot of Japanese food. That's why I like breakfast food, because there's usually not garlic or onions.
Because it's so simple. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. Protein, fiber. What's your stance on protein?
It's an essential macronutrient. It's good. I tell people to have protein approximately the mass of your hand at breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and something a third of your hand as a snack in between.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Very satiating.
Satiating, yes. Not as satiating as fiber. Not as satiating as fiber and fat, and not as satiating as the three together. So I tell people every meal there should be protein, fiber, and healthy fat. And I call it the holy trinity of satiety.
The problem with eating fiber to satiety, though, is that if you eat too much, which is not always predictable, like where that threshold lies, it can make you miserable from a digestive standpoint.
It can constipate you.
Or make you bloated, gassy.
Yeah. So depending on if it's water soluble versus insoluble, you need a balance of both. I actually use Metamucil every day.
Morning or night?
I'm playing around with it. I used to take it at night just before bed, wake up like clockwork, but now I'm doing it noon. Yeah. Now I'm doing it noon. I just 1 tablespoon. That's it.
You do that for satiety, for the digestive benefits?
No,
for that?
Just for motility. Just as you get older, your motility changes. And I think it started for me at about 40. It's not bad. It's just like I want to get ahead of it. It's like, how do I stay as regular as I did when I was in my 30s? And so I just have Metamucil, which I used to joke about.
It's also really good for lipids, actually.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, which is great.
Yeah.
And we Ashkenazis, there's typically some genetic dyslipidemia that
we have the worst of every genetic. What are you talking about? Like we're inbred. We have every Tay-Sachs disease, type 1 diabetes. We have celiac, Crohn's.
We're intelligent.
We're smart. You think Crohn was a Taiwanese guy? No.
Maybe we're equipped with the genes and the intelligence so that we can figure it out. It's like, that's sort of our task.
Yeah, we're great at accounting, tax law. We're great, medicine, but really medicine because we're learning on ourselves.
Yeah. So what's next for you? What's coming up? What are you excited about?
The training is something that I've done for many years. I did less of it for the last 10 years. My team did most of the training. Business stuff sort of took over most of my time. I fell in love with training again a couple of years ago. I've been doing more of it than I had, but it's still just a small part of my day. So I'm on the advisory board of a bunch of different companies and on the corporate board of some others. I'm the global director of fitness for Four Seasons hotels. So I design their fitness amenities around the world.
That's awesome.
Standard. That's a lot of fun. I'm actually hosting a retreat at the Four Seasons Cabo this weekend.
Where was my invite?
So quarterly, this might not be too late.
Yeah.
Oh, it might not be too late. Let me find out. Oh, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I've never been to Cabo.
Well, this is the best part of Cabo because Cabo, the beaches are not great. The Pacific Ocean, they're big waves. There's rocks. People once a year, someone gets sucked in, but this is on the East Cape, so it's the Sea of Cortez. The water's like bath water.
Wow.
No waves. It's great. I work with Aloe, which is exciting. I develop fitness tools for them and content. Hyperice, Fitbit.
Hyperice is like the Normatec and
They have Normatec.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hypervolts, the guns, the Hypersphere, the ball.
What do those boots do for you? I love wearing them. They feel great.
It's about recovery.
Hmm.
And so, as we exercise, gravity takes hold and all of our blood and fluids and electrolyte, and metabolic byproducts kind of go down. We use our legs. Recovery takes longer sometimes with legs than other body parts because it's down here.
Is that why people's like legs swell after a long flight, for example?
Exactly. Deep vein thrombosis is a possibility. So what it does is it has this peristaltic, like wave-like contractions that kind of squeeze your lower limbs, and it's like a lymphatic massage, if you will, and bring everything. You'll always see LeBron after his games with his legs up, wearing the Normatec boots. And a company called Form. The first was the Mirror and then Tonal, now Form. Very, very cool stuff. A company that's about to come out that hasn't been named yet. Optimi, which is a mushroom company, psilocybin.
Oh man, nice.
Yeah.
You're interested in that space?
Extraordinarily. Yeah. Yeah, I'm fascinated by it. Did you read How to Change Your Mind?
Yes.
Michael Pollan.
Yeah, I had him on the podcast too.
Oh, is he great?
Around the time that it came out. Yeah, he's a very, very articulate, good storyteller.
Yeah. Oh, I love him.
Mm-hmm.
He's great. Him and Anthony Bourdain it's like if I had my last dinner, Anthony, not now, but yeah.
Did you get to work with Anthony? Did you ever meet him?
No, I didn't. I was a huge fan. I got a very weird call to not replace him, but the production company that was working on him, they wanted me to do a show. And I was just so geeked. Like I think it was called 0.0, the company.
0.0 Productions, yeah.
And I thought maybe if I do the show, I'll meet Anthony, or maybe I can work with him. But huge fan. He impacted me big time to write the book, The World Diet. So it was 12, 13 years ago. I took a year off my practice and I traveled to the 10 healthiest countries in the world. And I wanted to understand, why are they living longer than us? What are they doing? There's no 24-hour fitness. There's no infomercials with Thigh Masters. There's no cleanse kits. Why are they living so much better and longer than we are? And I wanted to study their diets, their cooking techniques, their ingredients, how they burn their calories. And it was awesome.
What'd you find?
I found that they have very little in common other than these two things. Three things. The first is they all walk over 11,000 steps a day, including the elderly and children, whereas the average American was at 4,200 steps a day.
Wow.
So if you're moving 3 times more than someone else, you're going to look and live a lot longer and better than they do.
And even the elderly. So the elderly in the West, frail, moves around in just coddled, basically.
Yep.
And some people, obviously, not to sound like ableist or anything, but some people are not able to, are disabled, because disability is such a common part of what it means to age in this country.
Yep.
But not necessarily, I guess, is what you're.
No, I remember being
saying.
in the Italy part of the book, and I was in Positano, and there's a road, and then there's a set of stairs that looked like it went to nowhere, up a mountain or something. And I saw this older gentleman go up, and he had grocery bags, and I watched the guy go, oh, these are pretty big stairs. And the next day I went back, and I'm like, I wonder what's up there. So I started walking. An hour and 10 minutes later, I got to this little village called Nocella. I don't know how many thousands of steps I did. And I thought, that old dude, that's the only way up to the town. So you want groceries, you want something from down to the other town, you got to walk up there. There's no road, there was nothing. That's how you get up there. This guy's been doing this since he's a kid.
Wow.
And so, it was incredible. So that was the first part, the steps. The second was sugar. You go around the world, they don't eat sugar like we eat sugar. They don't put sugar in everything. We put sugar, as you know, in everything. And the third was carbohydrates. Everywhere else around the world eats more carbohydrates than we do.
That's very interesting.
Yeah. So Japan's the longest living country in the world, and they receive the majority of their calories from white rice. Same thing with Singapore, same thing with China, same thing with South Korea, same thing with the breads in Sweden, Finland, Norway, Iceland, Denmark, same thing with the Mediterranean countries. They eat carbohydrates because carbohydrates are not bad for you. Refined carbohydrate, sugar, not great.
Interesting. Yeah. What kind? So rice, breads, things like that.
And the kind of breads are different.
How are they different?
They're fermented. Here, when the war happened and they invented Wonder Bread, it was the first time where how do you speed up the fermentation process? You add this kind of yeast so that you put it an hour later, you can bake it. Whereas they used to ferment it for long, slow periods of time and put them away and just really let it work.
So bread was made exclusively in the past via fermentation.
Oh yeah.
Huh.
And this fermentation changes the characteristics of the starch, makes the nutrients more bioavailable. It's an amazing process. Again, Michael Pollan has this series on Netflix. One of them, he talks about bread making and how healthy bread was. You could live off of bread if that was your one staple, because it had protein, it had fiber, it had healthy fats, it had all these things, and it had all these nutrients in it. But today, our bread is basically nutrient free. It's just made so quickly.
Fascinating.
So breads.
And also the fermenting bread like sourdough and the like, it also it pre-digests gluten.
Yes, exactly. This gluten sensitivity is more of a recent thing because of the way we make our bread.
It's fascinating.
Yeah. And everyone thinks they have a gluten allergy. I love that.
I would still wonder whether or not they're healthy because of the carbs that they're consuming or in spite of the carbs that they're consuming. You know what I'm saying? Now, granted, they're moving a lot more, so I'm not saying that, but that's just I think an interesting question.
Well, their diets can be compared to other places around the world that have lower carbohydrate diets, and those places don't do better.
Right.
So if you look at the Inuits and the Nunavits and a lot of the Eskimo tribes, Native Canadian tribes, where they basically live off of whale blubber and they go months without any carbohydrates, really. And that really is keto.
Hey, if you like that video, you need to check out this one here, and I'll see you there.
And I was basically always sick. I had a really weak immune system. I tried everything conventional. I tried everything natural. Nothing worked. I couldn't find a place for myself. And I was just sick a lot. And that was my life.